go. To you fans, YouTubers, this is the Marx Brothers. These are some sculpture dolls that I made back in the 1980s. And of course the guy in the middle is Harpo. And then you've got Chico Marx. And then, of course, Groucho. These were all heads and feet. Were all sculpted hands. Were all sculpted out of polyform. And I made stuffed cloth bodies. And tried to make clothes. The only thing I didn't make was Groucho's jacket, and I stole that from Oliver Hardy. These are the Marx Brothers. Yeah, I'll show you some more of my stuff. This is called Board Meeting. This is made out of the same plastic clay compound called polyform. And I did this back in the 80s too. I started to do a whole street scene. I saw Michael Garman's studio in Colorado, and it was like, this guy was amazing. So I thought, well, maybe I can do something similar to that. So that's called the Board Meeting. He's talking some tall tales, got him a little bottle of hooch between his legs. This guy is pretending like he's listening so he can have some of that hooch. There's Romeo. He had a cigarette in his hand, but it's falling out. That's how I pictured myself when I was in my 40s. I did it when I was in my 20s. And I turned out to be much bigger and uglier. This one's called Anticipation. I did this back in probably the 90s. And this is my dragon elf phase. This dragon just hatched, and it's waiting on this elf, and this dragon are waiting on its sibling to hatch, waiting on this egg. Modeled that face after my brother David, of course. Well, that's called Anticipation. I don't know what that is. It's a flashlight. This one's called Ta-da! And this is a kind of a circus themed guy. Just did a trick with his amazing dog. And that's his amazing dog. This is an amazing dog. Can't get a very good shot, can I? Ta-da! And this one's called Boo. Most of y'all, the 12 or 13 of you all that have seen some of my YouTube videos know I'm a big monster freak. I sculpted this back in the 90s, I think. And these guys are out on a scary Halloween night and they hear this strange boo, which kind of freaks all three of them out. And of course, this guy in the tree is wondering what all the hubbub is about. So this is a polyform sculpture. All of them are. Monsters and vampires, Wolfman, Frankenstein. It is very scary. Oh. This was my cop on the corner. He was on my street scene that I was going to build. He was going to be on the corner making sure that everybody was behaving themselves. And this was his little buddy that was going to make sure he could help him. I had all kinds of people in mind for my street scene. Called Law and Order. As you can tell, his street scene was going to take place in cooler weather. And one of the buildings that I was going to make had a diner in it, Ruby's Diner. And I call this sculpture Scrambled Eggs. They managed to save one egg. Ruby and Pablo. Pablo was the chef. He still works for him. Actually, I think he owns Ruby's. Ruby and him kind of developed a relationship. They found a better place to be in each other's arms. I recommend, if you want to hear a good song, look up Harry Chapin's A Better Place to Be. It's a great story from a great storyteller. So there's Law and Order and Scrambled Eggs. This one was Charlie and Edith, or Gertrude maybe. Maybe she's a Gertrude. Charlie was a landlord of ours back in the 80s. He rented us a house he lived in. He was a retired president of a bank, but he had the house that him and his first wife lived in, and near downtown Lexington. And he lost his wife in a tragic accident when they were young, newlyweds. She was walking from a shopping plaza in Eastland and got hit by a car and killed. And Charlie was a very kind man. Gosh, he's long gone. But I had a bus stop in mind, and I had a park bench or a bus stop bench, but I don't know what happened to it. It's gotten lost over the years. And then this little lady is sitting patiently, waiting for the bus. She's kind of a interesting character, I think. She had a cigarette in her hand, too. She's got her little flowered dress on and her warm booties for the winter time. Her red earrings and her hat to match. And then old Charlie reading the newspaper. He'd come over and visit us from time to time, and he'd come in the house, and he'd like to reminisce in that old house that him and his first wife lived in. And he'd come in and talk a little bit, and then he'd ask us, he'd say, "Do you have a beer?" And we'd give him a beer, and he'd drink the beer and go to sleep in one of our chairs and fall asleep for a couple hours, or even just a cat nap for 15 or 20 minutes. And then he'd wake up and say, well, I guess I better get going. We miss you, Charlie. These were a couple of more people that were going to be on the street near the bus stop. Actually, they were coming out of a department store. And Harriet and her husband Walter. And Harriet lost her purse, which would have been clasped in her left hand, but she's got her dog. And Walter's packages that he's carrying have disappeared over the years. I don't know what happened to him, but I'll make him some more. Don't dawdle, Walter. We must get down to Marshall's before the sale ends.
Yes, dear. I'm coming, honey Schnookums.
She looks like she's just tired from all that shopping. So, those are those two. This was a lady on her way to work and in a hurry and taking her little son to the daycare. And at the corner was a Santa Claus, and he saw Santa and he wanted to go back and see the Santa Claus. But she had to get booking. She was a hard-working single woman with a sweet kid. And this was done in the 80s. You can probably tell by the outfit she's wearing. And he's definitely an ornery old cuss. I want to go see Santa Claus. We gotta go, honey. Now, these two I found in a box that I stored some of my pieces in. These guys got broken. And unfortunately, the artist who I modeled after, a very dear friend of ours named John Stanley, John Jacob Stanley, who was an artist he came from Cincinnati. He was a postman for a long time. And this poor lady lost her arm, but she might be able to make her a pretty good arm. And I can't remember what she was doing. I think she was standing outside her door looking at all the trouble that was going on on the street. She might have been getting her newspaper. But she's wearing her house slippers. She might have been inside an apartment building, now that I think about it. And I had this guy, John, in an apartment building, in his studio, painting. And I had another painting, more like his style. You should look up John Jacob Stanley. That little blunt in his mouth. He was a pretty heavy smoker from what I remember. He was a gentleman, though. Gosh, he was so kind, so tender. His wife's name was Ruth. And Ruth died of cancer. That's a painting I did to put in the scene. So that's John Stanley with his Looney Tunes shirt on, and I wish this lady had her arm back. I'm going to have to finish her up and give her a new arm. And I've got a painting that John Stanley's wife did. If I can pull it out, I'll take a picture of it. Now, this is the painting that John Stanley's wife, Ruth, painted back in the 80s. And she was going to trade it to me for a sculpture of James Arness, the actor, that I was going to do a little person version of him. I never got him finished either. But this is Ruth, and I believe she used her maiden name Borg, and signed it Ruth Borg. This is very interesting. A lot of greens. She liked the owls. She was pretty good in her This was done by Ruth Borg. Ruth Berg. Ruth was she would fuss at John. She loved him very deeply. And she put up with a lot of shenanigans. Now I have a picture that John Stanley painted too. I'm going to go ahead and get a shot of that. John Stanley did a barn scene from a barn in Kentucky. He would go out once a week for a while and study this barn. He was definitely more abstract and out there, but he did do some scenes like this, still life like barns. And he gave this to my wife as a gift. And John Jacob Stanley, 1989. He gave this to Donna. He also did a print for her, which he gave her. He was a dear person. We miss John. He ended up moving to Florida with a couple of gentlemen who, I guess they took care of him. So that's a barn. I think this is called Tolliver Farm, which was out near Lexington. This called Spring by John Jacob Stanley. Did it in 1977. And he gave it to my wife, Donna, as a birthday present. Sorry for the picture glare, folks. Well, I think that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my sculptures and some of my artwork. Say goodbye, folks. And I'll say goodbye. Anyway, see you guys later. Over and out.